My name is Amata, and in this Red Gaming Tech video I am here with a suitably spooky roundup of some of the best games, my recommendations for the Halloween sale that is happening on both Steam and GoG. So I'm going to go through a few games that I recommend and why I think you should play them. There's quite a few games to get through. I'm not going to go for lengthy explanations for each of them because I'll be here till Christmas, but I am going to go through some games that I think are worth your time and money from these sales. So the first item on our list today is not really going to be super scary or horror-y, but it is a really good game, and it is in fact Doom. Now obviously this isn't a scary game at all, unless, you know, running out of ammo for your super shotgun can be considered scary, and there is definitely an argument for that to be made. But in all seriousness, this is just being recommended because it's a really good game. It was on my Game of the Year list for a reason. It was on many Game of the Year's lists last year, as it's absolutely fantastic, and it's a steal at the moment at 33% off, making it £13.39. What better way to spend Halloween than shooting demons in the face with a shotgun to an absolutely cracking soundtrack? Honestly, this game, so good, especially for like your older school, faster paced first person shooters. Let's move swiftly on, however, shall we, to Alien Isolation. This game doesn't really need much of an introduction, to be honest. After the absolute shit show that was Aliens Colonial Marines, the stock of the Alien franchise, at least in terms of games, went down a lot, and you can't really blame people because, my god, that was awful. However, Alien Isolation rescued the series in the eyes of gamers, as it was absolutely fantastic and was pretty much exactly what you'd want from an Alien game. Not only was it steeped in references and style that is very reminiscent of the original film, it was actually a horror game where you're being stalked by a single alien. I know, crazy, right? And it just, while it was very slow paced at times, that's kind of what I liked about it. It was a sort of more Japanese Silent Hill style of like taking a lot of time to kind of build the tension really slowly. That's the kind of horror I can really get behind. Like the horror films and games that I like are ones that go for this slower psychological build rather than, hey, something's jumping out at you, boo, woo, isn't that scary? And I'm like, no, you just startled me. So I would definitely recommend Alien Isolation, especially at 70% off, making it £8.99. Let's move on, however, to the Amnesia Collection. These games don't really need much of an introduction, neither does my phone going off just there. As of course, they pretty much revitalised horror, as it was kind of dead for a long time. Like, the AAA industry just decided that no one wanted horror games anymore, at least not the traditional ones. But Amnesia: The Dark Descent, of course, rescued it from this sort of slumber, I guess you could say, and did so by scaring the pants out of a lot of us. Now this is obviously the collection of both The Dark Descent and A Machine for Pigs, but in all honesty, A Machine for Pigs was a bit of a disappointment for me. You could kind of tell, well, to be honest, you could really tell that it wasn't actually frictional at the helm for this one. I would say that, yeah, the collection is really cheap. It's 90% off at £2.69, but I would say really The Dark Descent is more what you're after if you're after an actual, like, proper horror game rather than a more story-focused walking sim style of game. And they're £1.49 each. So it's not exactly, like, expensive to get them both, but out of those two, I would definitely recommend Amnesia: Dark Descent. It revitalised horror and obviously exploded on YouTube, and that's, you know, that scare cam really became popularised. Obviously, it wasn't the first game to have scare cam, but it definitely was one of the first to really kind of came to the forefront with those scare cam videos. And obviously, YouTube was a big part of its success and all that. So I would say you'd be remiss if you didn't play the game. That is the reason we're getting so many good horror games. Obviously, it's not the sole reason, but I'd say it's definitely a big contributor as to why survival horror has seen a big resurgence, especially in the AAA gaming space. And speaking of AAA gaming, our next edition is very much a AAA game, and obviously one of our more expensive entries. It is Resident Evil 7. Now this game is obviously a big change in direction for the series, because obviously it went from being a third-person game to a first-person game, and there's a lot of concerns like, oh, I hope this isn't going full Amnesia, but obviously that's not the case at all. I played this game when it came out, did buy it for myself. It wasn't given to me via code or anything like that, and it was really, really good. Exactly the breath of fresh air and the sort of crisis aversion that the series needed, because after Resident Evil 6, which was just dreadful in every single way, I think a lot of us were like, Resident Evil's just done, it's been going like this for a while now. But Resident Evil 7 came along and said, hey, look guys, we can still do survival horror, and we can do it really well. It's not perfect by any means, it has its flaws, but it is definitely a really, really good horror game. And if you like your old school Resident Evils with your puzzle solving and your, you know, silly storylines and all that, then yeah, I mean, this isn't full silly, this isn't, you know, full Albert Wesker evil mode silly, but it is definitely a Resident Evil game, and it is 50% off, making it £19.99. So those are better of a few of the games on Steam. They've also got Outlast as well. I was going to give a quick mention. That was also another one that was pretty damn popular among the sort of first-person you can't attack games. So that's definitely worth mentioning as well. People can probably say, where's the Evil Within? That is on there too. It's 50% off, and obviously the Evil Within 2 just came out, but obviously that's not in the sales, unsurprisingly. But that's what I want to cover on Steam. We also have a couple of deals I want to mention on GOG, as I already said. Now, they do have an absolute ton of games included in the sale that aren't actually horror games, and I'll kind of go through them in a second, but I want to focus on the horror games first. But I do want to give these other games a mention because they're just good, to be honest. Alright, so the first game I want to mention is actually Soma. Now, this is the follow-up from Frictional after Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and it is very much within that same vein of you're in a situation where there's things that are going to kill you, but you can't actually fight back. All you can do is be stealthy, hide, that sort of thing. But this is very, very different from Amnesia. It is more of a story-driven experience. It is more about the story than the horror, I would say. And obviously the setting is really different as well. And honestly, it's one of the most thought-provoking games I've ever played. It really makes you think about what it actually means to be human and that sort of thing. Honestly, it's a really, really good game. And the ending, I won't spoil it obviously, but holy fuck, the ending, like, just smashed me in the face like a hammer. I was just like, oh dear. So, I would 100% recommend Soma to everybody. It is honestly not a game just worth because all the scares, but it's just one of the most interesting games I've played in years, to be honest with you. It's not as scary as Amnesia, to be honest, but it is still a game absolutely worth your time, and it is $5.69 at the moment on GOG. It's normally £22, so you're saving quite a bit there. I would 100% recommend it for their absolute steal of a price. So, let's move on, shall we, to the Lone Survivor Director's Cut, rather. So, this game has been described by many as 2D Silent Hill, and to be honest, they're not wrong. It is very similar in theme to everything, to the themes that you often see in Silent Hill. It is obviously in a more, it's a 2D kind of side-scrolling game, more pixely style, and obviously that's not going to be as immersive or scary as a game like, well, Silent Hill, or even Amnesia or Soma, or other older games like Condemned or anything like that. But it is still a really cool game, and it genuinely has a really good atmosphere and quite surreal imagery that I really like as a fan of the old school Silent Hill series. It is taking a similar theme but from a different angle of Silent Hill as well, which I really like, and is just an experience that's definitely worth having. Now, I've definitely seen this game cheaper than the price that is currently on GOG, so if this looks interesting, perhaps wait for the full-on autumn or even the Christmas sale for it to go on. But it's not like expensive or anything. I've just definitely seen it cheaper is all. I just thought I'd mention that, as it's currently £5.69. It's normally £11.39, so it's basically half off, and I would definitely recommend Lone Survivor. So there's a few games from GOG that I wanted to focus on. There's a couple I just want to give a quick mention, like for example Corpse Party, which is obviously a kind of visual novel style. We've also got The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, as well as the original Phantasmagoria and Phantasmagoria 2, A Puzzle of Flesh. So if you're after some old school FMV games for some reason, they're both pretty damn cheap. For some reason, Phantasmagoria is more expensive than Phantasmagoria 2, but is what it is. I also want to mention the Cat Lady. Now, this is definitely a dark game. It has a very sort of grim graphic style that is sort of vaguely grimy, and it's not really a horror game, but it's definitely I'm trying to think of the right word. It's definitely a game where you see a lot of sort of dark and brutal imagery, and it's a game that is quite like depressing because it literally is about someone who has depression and who has tried to commit suicide. So it's not a happy game, to say the least, but it is an interesting game and one that is definitely worth exploring, especially at £1.59. So before I close the video, I just want to go through a couple of the non-horror games very quickly that are on GOG for really, really cheap that I do want to recommend. We've got Painkiller Black Edition, which is £1.59. Darkest Dungeon, which apparently I can't recommend to you guys enough, is £7.59. You could argue that has horror elements, but I wouldn't really describe it as a horror game. It has Lovecraftian elements for sure, but you know, if you're after your scares, this ain't going to be it. But it's definitely an interesting game. And speaking of interesting games, Hotline Miami 1 and 2 are both in the GOG sale. Hotline Miami 1 is £1.59 and Hotline Miami 2 is £3.09. I would say they are absolutely both worth that price, and you can actually get both of them, as well as a digital comic for Hotline Miami 2 for £4.68. So yeah, if you're thinking of buying them, absolutely I would 110% recommend both of these games. Hotline Miami 2 isn't quite as good as number 1, but they are both still really worth your time. And if you're after difficult games, then look no further, my friends. Look no further. So those are my personal recommendations from the Steam Halloween sale 2017. Let me know some of your thoughts. What would you recommend? You've had me blather on for over 10 minutes now. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.